2023 is shaped up to be one of the best years in gaming in a while. We've seen the release of banger after banger, and truthfully, it's been hard to keep up with everything. Whether it's due to the lack of time for all these games or the lack of funds, I think we all could agree this is a good problem to have. If you don't agree, then I'm not sure why you're watching gaming content, but since you're here, know we have another problem that's thrown its hat into the arena, and its name is Starfield. Bethesda was kind enough to shoot a kit over a review copy of the game a few weeks before release, so I spent a good amount of time on it, and I thought I'd share some impressions before you install it. Just understand, this is not a full-blown review. It's more so of an impressions video from someone who has over 10 hours on the game. It was far too much content in Starfield for me to complete it and drop a full-blown review, and truthfully, I've reached a point in my content creation career where I'm kind of overstressing myself out trying to rush through another large open world game just so I can have a day one review that might do well. So instead, I'm taking inspiration from game rakes, but this ain't a before you buy, this is a before you install, so it's different. You feel me? Now, if you're worried about spoilers, don't be. All footage shown in this video is very early on in the game. And with that disclaimer out of the way, the first thing I want you to know before you install Starfield is that this game is a 100 gigabyte download. Currently, there is an option to preload it, and since the game isn't officially out yet, I'd highly suggest doing that now if your internet isn't the best. Not to mention, I believe there will be a day one patch that will also increase download times. Now, with that little tip out of the way, let's talk about the game. If you're watching this video, I'm sure you're wondering, is Starfield the next big RPG gamers will be spending hundreds of hours getting lost in? I haven't completed the game, so it's hard for me to answer that question. Instead, what I will say is not only did Starfield impress me, but I'd go as far as to say is that I've been blown away by my experience so far. Anybody who consumes my content knows I love Fallout, but I am one of Bethesda's biggest skeptics.
16 times the detail.
They've made a lot of large claims over the years about this game, and after poorly optimized release after poorly optimized release, I began to lose faith in this studio. So it makes me happy that I can sit here and tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I think they got one. And let's kick things off by addressing the elephant in the room. Did the Xbox version of this game being locked at 30 frames per second bother me? Now, as a primarily PC gamer who prefers things at 60 FPS and above, I can confidently say, no, the 30 FPS did not bother me. And the reason for that being is, shockingly, and I cannot speak on the PC version, I'm talking about Xbox, but shockingly, the Xbox version is optimized for the most part. Yes, the frame rate is locked at 30 frames per second, but I never experienced any crazy frame drops in my time with the game. Although I prefer 60 and above, 30 FPS doesn't bother me so long as the frame rate never dips below that. When something drops from 60 to 55, it's not a big deal, but when you go from 30 to 25 frames, it can really hurt the experience. But I am happy to report that the frame rate was consistent on Xbox for the most part, which allowed me to immerse myself into the world of Starfield. And the immersion started with the character creator. Y'all, I spent a whole hour creating my hero Starvante. And yes, his name is Starvante because he's a black man that was born amongst the stars. If you're an RPG fan, you're gonna love the character creator. You can customize everything about the way you look to your personality traits. Now, I do wish there were more hair options for black folks, but if you're a black person watching this video, you know how it goes with character creators. Cornrows, afros, a basic buzz cut. Don't expect too much. What I will say impressed me about the character creation process is the amount of thought that went into the lore aspect of your character. After you finish your look, you're tasked with giving your character a backstory. Now, after you give them a backstory, you have to give them 3 personality traits. This section felt like Mass Effect on steroids, and as a huge Mass Effect fan, I have to say I love this. The backstory you chose dictates how some NPCs will treat you. I chose the bounty hunter backstory, so some people I encounter are either scared of me or they make condescending remarks. The personality traits you choose unlock certain skills at the beginning of the game, so you don't have to use skill points towards them. Some will make you a better shooter, some will make you a better pilot, and some will give you better hand-to-hand combat. You get the idea. Matter of fact, to give you an example, since I chose the bounty hunter backstory, it unlocked the jetpack as well as piloting skills at the beginning of the game, so I didn't have to waste any skill points. And I counted, and there were several backstories you could choose from, as well as 24 personality traits to help you shape your character, which I thought was dope. After that, you're finally thrown into the game, and can I start off by saying this game is gorgeous? Even on Xbox, this game is a pleasure to look at. Character models look good, planets, they can be hit or miss, but what impressed me most is the use of lighting and the way it bounces off the environment. It does a great job of setting the tone. It looks great on Xbox, so I know it looks even better on PC. That being said, not all the visuals are perfect. When talking to people, the voice acting is great, it's very engaging, but the face models, not so much, especially the eyes. Characters' eyes tend to drift all over the place, so a lot of characters look cross-eyed when you having dialogue with them. This is nothing game-breaking, but I do have to point it out. You might also run into the occasional weird visual glitch. You can play Starfield in first or third person, and you can switch on the fly at any time, which I love, by the way. The only issue is that I did get this weird glitch from time to time where my character was always looking to the side in third person, so it looked like my neck was snapped. You'll catch also the occasional clipping from enemies through walls and some texture pop-ins, but it's nothing game-breaking. I didn't have any game crashes, just kind of your typical open world goofy glitches. Now, if you're looking for a single player experience that's heavy on content, just know there is so much to do in this game. But if I had to simplify it for people, I describe Starfield as Mass Effect meets Fallout. There's a story here and I find it interesting, but I won't be spoiling any of that. Instead, I'm going to focus on the gameplay. Now, there are 5 key components to the gameplay loop. This includes exploring, dialogue trees, piloting, looting, and shooting. If you like to explore, this game is for you. Bethesda claims there's 1,000 planets to explore. How many of them are fun? I don't know. As mentioned earlier, I didn't have time to do all of that. What I will say is that I enjoyed the exploration when you land somewhere because you're not stifled by your character's level. Fairly early on in the game, I was level 7 and I ended up on an ice planet fighting for my life against a level 27 pirate captain. I love when games open up and just let you do whatever you want. Yeah, it would have been easier to come back with better gear, but I'm already here, so let's get it on. I also love the attention to detail. Early on, I kept running out of stamina, and then I jokingly just started jumping around, only to find out it takes far less stamina if you just jump on certain planets due to the lack of gravity. I felt so dumb at that moment, but then I also appreciated the attention to detail. I had that moment where I was like, oh yeah, I'm playing a space game. If you've played any modern RPG such as Mass Effect, Fallout, or The Witcher 3, then you should feel right at home with the dialogue trees. In this game, you're constantly gonna encounter new people who wanna parlay and give you new missions. Some choices will progress the story, some choices will provide more context, and some choices will get you out of hard situations or into hard situations depending on how you wanna play. I really like how they did the persuasion system. There will come moments where you have to try and talk your way out of situations, and depending on your answer, that can escalate or de-escalate the moments. There are tense moments that felt like I was taking a quiz, but a quiz I actually enjoyed. Now, if you're wondering, do dialogue choices affect the main storyline or just move things along? I can't answer that question seeing as I haven't completed enough of the game. Sorry about that. But what I can tell you is that dialogue never bored me, and it was cool to see how your backstory affects the way people perceive you. Now, if you're into dogfighting, you get to customize and pilot ships in this game. Controlling your ship and space combat are simple and intuitive, and that aspect I enjoyed. But I wasn't a big fan of all the extras you gotta do. There's an interface on the lower left you have to use, and sometimes you have to do things like divert energy away from your shields to boost up the speed on the ship to get away, or put more energy on your lasers. And I get the idea behind it. They were going for a more immersive ship experience, but it felt like busy work to me. I'm sure some of you will appreciate that attention to detail. Just understand that wasn't my personal preference. Now, one thing I did really like about the space flight is if you defeat a ship in combat, you can board their ship and you can loot them. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, you can be a space pirate, baby. Personally, I just like exploring the world, talking to all the different NPCs, exploring planets on foot, and the shooting aspect of the game. Now, if you're wondering how the shooting felt, I'd say it was serviceable. It's not the tightest shooter like Doom Eternal or Titanfall 2, but the mechanics get the job done. It's a shooter that you can play in first or third person, although I do think the combat plays better in first over third person, but I did enjoy exploring the world of Starfield in third person and using third person to check corners in combat. As you explore, you can pick up damn near anything you see and put it in your inventory. That personally drove me crazy because I still can't tell what's important and what's not, so my OCD makes me want to collect it all, and the next thing you know, I'm cumbersome and I can barely breathe. That being said, the fact that I even want to explore all the content this game has to offer speaks to the world Bethesda took the time to craft. If you're worried about skill trees, there is one, but I barely got to touch it, but from first glance and a little bit I got to play, it seems fairly deep, so you can craft the hero that you see fit. The bottom line that I'm trying to make is that you can tell this game was a labor of love just by the sheer scope of it all and the attention to detail. I have a hunch, and I'm not saying this is gonna happen, just a hunch, that when this game releases, RPG fans are going to enjoy Starfield. I would not be shocked if this gets nominated for Game of the Year, but I'm not gonna give a definitive score or my final thoughts because I have not completed the game. So hopefully you enjoyed some of my impressions of Starfield before you install it. If you did, I highly suggest you check out my video explaining why I uninstalled Remnant 2, and you can do that by clicking the card on the screen and hooking a brother up with some of that quality watch time.